Welcome back to Pokemon Episode Summaries. Today, I'll be doing the final episode of Season 6, Master Quest 276, Hoenn Alone. Not only is this the last episode of Season 6, but it's also the last episode of the original series, as the next episode will be the official first episode of Ruby and Sapphire, or Advanced. Anyways, the episode begins with Ash and the gang having used the ticket at the Seafoam Islands, like Ash's mom had instructed Ash to, and using the ticket, they were now riding a boat on the way to Little Root Town in the Hoenn region, to locate Professor Birch. Ash and Pikachu talked about this, and how excited they were to reach the Hoenn region and to have new adventures. But they get so excited that they're sad that they're not in Little Root Town already, so they try to kill some time on the boat by relaxing and swimming in a pool together, and also sunbathing by the time it reached evening, to try and catch some evening sun rays. The day went by just like that, but Ash was still impatient, as he then spotted the captain of the ship and his Machoke walk by, and he asked when the ship was going to dock in Little Root Town, leading the captain to confirm that the ship would arrive in Little Root Town by tomorrow night, though he asks why Ash was going to Little Root Town in the first place, explaining that it was a relatively small and lonely town, suggesting that the only way Ash could really have fun in a town like that was if he brought some friends with him, leading Ash to reply that he had his Pikachu, and that was all he needed, and stated that he could make many new friends in Little Root Town, although the captain doubted this, stating that not many other Pokemon trainers went to Little Root Town at all, leading Ash to state that he could just make friends with some of the new Pokemon. Knowing that Ash had come from the Seafoam Islands in Kanto, the sailor realized that Ash was right, as he likely hadn't seen any Hoenn Pokemon before, so he would be kept busy as soon as he saw all of them, and he would of course want to make friends with them. So with that, the captain agreed that Ash going to Little Root Town was actually a good idea. Meanwhile, Team Rocket was spying on Ash. Man, it's weird not to say Ash and the gang. But yeah, as we have expected, even though Brock and Misty weren't coming with Ash to Hoenn, Team Rocket of course were. They were spying on Ash through a lifeboat that they had trailing the actual boat, and planned to steal Pikachu, thinking that it would be easy this time since Ash didn't have any friends to assist him, and they decided to strike at night when everyone else on the ship would be asleep, so Ash would truly be alone, confident that they could make their escape before Ash woke up, or anyone else on the ship woke up. Meanwhile, later that night, Ash and Pikachu had decided to sleep on one of the ship's cabin rooms, although only Pikachu had fallen asleep, as Ash was too excited about his previous journey ending and a new one beginning, very excited to see what new adventures awaited him and Pikachu in Hoenn, including a potential Hoenn League. He tries to talk to Pikachu about his excitement, only to find that Pikachu was asleep long ago, so Ash decides to follow suit and try and get some sleep. Shortly after Ash fell asleep, though, a robotic arm then opened up the door to Ash's bunk cabin and grabbed Pikachu. Unbeknownst to Ash, since he was still sleeping, it was Team Rocket who was operating the robotic arm, although they could do so from very far away because it was an extendable arm. Thankfully, as Pikachu was being stolen away, he cried out to alert Ash, which woke him up. However, as Pikachu was taken out of the door, Ash was still waking up, as he was mumbling and grumbling, not knowing what the fuck he just heard, but then he noticed that Pikachu was missing, so he ran out of the room to look around, not knowing where Pikachu had went, as the extendable arm had escaped by this point. Eventually, Ash comes across one of the ship's hallways, still not being able to find Pikachu, or the people who took him, believing it was Team Rocket, even though he didn't actually see them, because, it was always Team Rocket. And as he rounds a corner, he bumps into the captain from before. The captain almost goes tumbling over, though thankfully he stops himself and questions what the fuck Ash was doing up in the middle of the night and what was wrong, leading Ash to explain the situation of how his Pikachu was captured. So, this leads the captain to log on to one of the ship's computers and check out the map, as he explains that the computer's map of the ship had sensors that indicated if there was anyone inside the rooms. And so it essentially said how many people, and sure enough, the map showed most of the rooms were empty since everyone seemed to be at the front of the ship on the dock. The map showed the food storage room blinking, showing 3 dots, indicating that 3 people were inside the food storage room, and the captain knew that no one was supposed to be in there, so he believed that that's where the culprits were, as did Ash, as 3 people made sense since there was 3 members of Team Rocket. Sure enough, Team Rocket was in the food storage room, stealing a lot of the food, and chowing down on it, not even bothering to put it in bags or anything. They were just eating it right then and there, as they had Pikachu beside them, placed in a cage, so that it could not break free, since it was electric-proof, which prevented Pikachu from using its Thunderbolt, which it desperately tried to do, but it of course failed. Team Rocket laughed at Pikachu's failures as they bragged about how they had actually managed to capture Pikachu since Ash was alone, and planned to get off as soon as the ship docked next, so they had no chance of being discovered. Unfortunately for Team Rocket, though, Ash and the captain arrived to rescue Pikachu in the storage room before the ship docked. Ash was excited to have successfully guessed that Team Rocket was behind it, as Team Rocket revealed themselves and did their motto, pretending to surf on some waves, sending out Arbok and Weezing to try and stop Ash and the captain, although the captain simply commanded his Machoke to fight back. Ash sent out his Bayleaf to help out the captain as well, only to remember that he didn't have any of his other Pokemon with him since he left them at Oak Slab. Damn, I bet he was kind of regretting that now. With Ash unable to help, the Machoke is forced to dodge Arbok's Poison Sting, but it fails to dodge another one when Weezing uses Smokescreen to make it hard for Machoke to see, and it also fails to dodge a tackle from Weezing. Arbok then goes in to try and finish off Machoke with an acid, although Machoke was able to dodge this as it escaped out of the smoke. However, the acid, since it missed Machoke, instead hit a wall on the ship, which melted a part of the wall off, which opened up the ship's water storage tank and sent all the water pouring out, sweeping everyone away in the flood. The captain and Machoke are swept off together though, and Machoke is eventually able to grab hold of its owner, as well as a nearby guardrail, to stop it and its trainer from being drifted any farther. They then climb up the guardrail and use it to get out of the water and onto a part of the ship that had not been flooded yet, where thankfully a phone was on the wall. He uses the phone to contact his co-captain and instructs him to try and get the ship to the nearest port so that the ship could be repaired, explaining the damage that occurred due to a flood by the food storage. The co-captain obliges as the ship now approaches a nearby port. Meanwhile, as for Team Rocket and Ash, they must have been able to find a guardrail as well, as they were able to pull themselves up to an area that wasn't flooded quite yet, and eventually they managed to make their way to the main deck of the ship, with Ash following them, desperate to get Pikachu back, since Meowth was still carrying Pikachu in its cage with them. Seeing Ash approach, James pulls out a huge grappling hook launcher that he somehow had, likely stored in the Meowth balloon somewhere, and he fires it onto a crane arm that was on the nearby port. Yes, that's right, they were already at the port, and uses the grappling hook to swing over to the port. However, since Ash was right behind Team Rocket, as they were swinging, about to reach the port, Ash grabbed on to Wobbuffet's tail, as Wobbuffet was at the bottom, hanging on to Meowth, while Meowth was hanging on to Jessie, and Jessie was hanging on to James, with Meowth still hanging on to Pikachu. But anyways, the point was, Ash was hanging on to Wobbuffet, so he was swinging with Team Rocket. Ash tries to reach his arm out to grab Pikachu while they were all swinging, but Meowth holds Pikachu up, and Ash is unable to grab Pikachu as he and Team Rocket swing, crashing into the crane. Everyone tried their best to grab onto the crane, but they couldn't, so they all fell down onto the port below, with Ash falling into several crates, breaking them as they softened his fall a little bit, and Team Rocket and Pikachu in his cage fell onto 2 trucks on the port, with Jessie, James, and Wobbuffet landing on one, and Meowth and Pikachu landing on the other. Ash tries to get out of the broken crates, but he was stuck in them as the wood crates were too pointy. Team Rocket saw this, and they instantly got up, standing on top of the truck, as they made fun of Ash for not being able to get out. But Team Rocket are then caught off guard as the 2 trucks begin to move, and when they reach an intersection at the end of the port, they go in different directions, separating Jessie, James, and Wobbuffet from Meowth and Pikachu. Just then, Ash successfully manages to break out of the crates, but since the trucks had already departed, Ash had lost sight of where Pikachu had went. Thankfully, Officer Jenny happened to be patrolling the port, and when she saw that Ash looked distressed, she asked what was wrong, leading Ash to explain what had happened with Pikachu. Exposition style. Meanwhile, it seems that the truck that Pikachu and Meowth were on had went in a direction that resulted in Pikachu and Meowth staying in the port, as it seemed that the port extended further beyond the main area. The truck then made a sharp turn to actually exit the port this time. However, since Pikachu and Meowth were on top, not fastened into any seatbelts, they both went flying off of the truck and land near some warehouses still on the port. And as a result of the fall, Pikachu's cage breaks open, and Meowth gets a head injury. Pikachu and Meowth walk around aimlessly along the port, trying to get back to Team Rocket and Ash. Though Meowth got sad, as he couldn't find Jessie and James anywhere, and he blamed Pikachu for the trouble, stating that if he didn't have Ash try and come and rescue it, then they could have just escaped with it, and everything would have been fine, and they wouldn't have been lost. Pikachu obviously rebuttals that it was Team Rocket's fault for trying to steal in the first place, and this just leads into a huge argument, when suddenly, the argument is cut off when a haunter comes up behind them and floats around them for a long time, annoying Meowth to the point where he tells it to go the fuck away, making the haunter angry as it fires a nightshade at Meowth and Pikachu, although Meowth and Pikachu dodge, and Meowth counters with Fury Swipes. Due to Fury Swipes being a normal attack though, it just phases right through the Ghost-type haunter. This scares Meowth, as he and Pikachu are forced to dodge yet another nightshade, and then Pikachu decides to take matters into its own hands as it uses Thunderbolt to hit Haunter, scaring it away, finally leaving, relieving Meowth and Pikachu. Just then, though, it was revealed that several Pidgey, Rattata, and Oddish had been hiding behind some crates by the warehouses and emerged, scaring Pikachu and Meowth as all the Pokemon surrounded the two. Back with Ash and Officer Jenny, Ash had just hopped into Officer Jenny's sidecar of her motorcycle so that the two of them could go searching for Pikachu. We then see the captain, who had reunited with his co-captain, on the deck of the ship, since, the captain and his Machoke were able to get out of the flooded area and all that, and they saw that Ash was leaving, and warned that if Ash wasn't back by nightfall, the ship would leave without him, because the ship's repairs would only take until nightfall. Ash acknowledges this, but still drives off with Officer Jenny, as she sends out her Pidgeot to go scouting for Pikachu from the air. As Ash and Jenny drove, Ash was worried, telling Officer Jenny that he was on his way to the Hoenn region, and he couldn't possibly go to Hoenn without Pikachu, stating that he had already given up all of his other friends, and he didn't want to lose Pikachu as well, leading Jenny to comfort Ash, stating that she would make sure to do her job and help him find Pikachu no matter what. Meanwhile, as for Pikachu and Meowth, it turned out that the Oddish, Pidgey, and Rattata that had surrounded Pikachu and Meowth were actually friendly, and they began talking with Meowth and Pikachu, first leading them to one of the warehouses on the port to take shelter. The Rattata, Oddish, and Pidgey proceed to explain that the bad Pokemon was the Haunter and all of its Haunter friends, explaining that they formed a gang and had invaded the port that was once peaceful with just the Oddish, Rattata, and Pidgey, and started bullying and scaring everyone, threatening to harm the Rattata, Pidgey, and Oddish if any of them went out to play. Essentially, the Haunter were claiming the territory as only their own. This leads Meowth to suggest that the Oddish, Rattata, and Pidgey simply fight back, adding that he and Pikachu would help them, but Rattata explained that there were multiple Haunter, stating that although there were only 2, they were still outnumbered, since 2 Haunter could easily overpower some Pidgey, Oddish, and Rattata, and explained that the situation was only going to get even worse, because since Meowth and Pikachu had pissed off that one Haunter, it was now going to come back, not only with its one Haunter friend, but also a whole bunch of other Pokemon as well, forming an entire gang to come and attack the Oddish, Rattata, and Pidgey. This scares Meowth and Pikachu, thinking that an entire gang was going to come attack, but just then, the Pidgey, Rattata, and Oddish laugh, stating that they were just joking, and there would obviously be no other Pokemon that would want to help the two Haunter, since all the other Pokemon in the area were just the Pidgey, Rattata, and Oddish, who all hated those bitches. Meowth angrily stated that if the Oddish, Pidgey, and Rattata were willing to make some goddamn jokes at a time like this, they clearly weren't very frightened, leading the Oddish, Rattata, and Pidgey to apologize, stating that joking was their way of coping with stressful situations, as they begged for Meowth and Pikachu to help them deal with the Haunter, at least until they were able to locate their two trainers, which the Pidgey, Oddish, and Rattata were aware of, as they had been eavesdropping on Meowth and Pikachu's previous conversation. Meowth, feeling bad for yelling at the Pokemon for making a joke, decides to help them, along with Pikachu, though the two clarify that they would only help until they were able to find their trainers, being Jesse, James, and Ash. Just then, an Oddish that had been scouting out just outside the warehouse for the two Haunter notified the other Oddish, Rattata, and Pidgey that the two Haunter were on their way. Meanwhile, upon realizing that they had been separated from Meowth and Pikachu, Jesse and James hopped off the truck that they were on and got on to their Meowth balloon to begin searching for both Meowth and Pikachu. James was desperately searching for Meowth, wanting to get their teammate back, but Jesse was solely interested in Pikachu, claiming that Pikachu was more important than Meowth, since Meowth was probably just eating right now or some shit. He was probably fine. Jesse and James weren't having much luck finding Pikachu or Meowth, though, as the port was entirely filled with warehouses that they couldn't enter in their balloon, and also narrow alleyways, another place they couldn't really enter. Meanwhile, Pidgeot was searching in the sky for Meowth and Pikachu, while Jenny and Ash were still searching on her bike, and to kill time while searching, Officer Jenny asked Ash about his Pikachu and why it was so important to him, leading Ash to explain his strong friendship with Pikachu, stating that it wasn't just a regular Pokemon to him, it was his best friend that he's experienced a lot with, stating that he could part with all of his other Pokemon for the time being, leaving them at the lab so that he could befriend new Pokemon, but Pikachu was the one Pokemon that he just could not part with. Just then, Officer Jenny's Pidgeot spotted something in the sky and flew towards it at an immensely fast pace as Ash and Jenny followed on Jenny's motorbike. Meanwhile, back with Meowth and Pikachu, Pidgey, Oddish, and the Rattata had convinced Meowth and Pikachu to help them out as they stood guard at one of the warehouses when the two Haunter showed up and began scaring the Pidgey, Pidgeotto, and Rattata, telling all of them to get the fuck out of their turf, wanting to intimidate the Pokemon. And they are able to, a bit, as two more Haunter then show up and demand the exact same thing, leading the Oddish, Pidgey, and Rattata to come to the conclusion that the Haunter did have some friends after all, but of course, it was just more rude-ass Haunter. They then plead for Meowth and Pikachu to do something, and inform the Haunter that they had some new allies, just as the Haunter did, referring, of course, to Meowth and Pikachu. Meowth, being the bitch that he was, despite agreeing to help the Oddish, Pidgey, and Rattata, slowly backs away from the Haunter, stating that he didn't mean him any harm, don't hurt me, Meowth is just being a little bitch, basically portraying the Pidgey, Oddish, and Haunter, but Pikachu, on the other hand, was honorable, and bravely stood up for the Pidgey, Rattata, and Oddish, explaining that the warehouse belonged to all the Pokemon, not just the Haunter, making Meowth surprised at how daring Pikachu was, stating that Pikachu's daringness was a bad idea, and it was just going to get him and Pikachu injured. However, Meowth couldn't get through to Pikachu, as Pikachu was too dedicated to trying to protect Oddish, Pidgey, and Rattata, stating that it was the right thing to do, and his Master Ash would have done the exact same thing. Man, I love this. It just shows that if a trainer like Ash is extremely good to his Pokemon, then they can spread their kindness to their Pokemon. Yay! Anyways, this was further proven, as since Jesse and James are massive dicks, Meowth was still a dick, as even with Pikachu's explanation, Meowth still wasn't interested in protecting the Oddish, Pidgey, or Rattata, as he still tried to back away. He can't though, because just as he was worried about, Pikachu had angered the four Haunter, and they surrounded Meowth and Pikachu, as one of them fired a Shadow Ball to try and take Pikachu and Meowth out. Thankfully, Meowth and Pikachu are both able to dodge, as Pikachu counters with a Thunderbolt, but the Haunter are able to dodge this, as they all scatter around in different places around the warehouse, before quickly reuniting to surround Meowth and Pikachu once again, essentially putting the fight back to square one. Although the Haunter were now just more angered, as they all use Nightshade at the exact same time. But Pikachu jumps on Meowth, launching himself into the air and kicking Meowth away in the process, meaning that Meowth and Pikachu had just dodged all the Nightshades, and the Nightshades were forced to collide into each other, since the Haunter all had no target to hit, aside from themselves now. With the Haunter distracted from this, and Pikachu still in the air, Pikachu launched an aerial Thunderbolt to shock all four of the Haunter and send them running away in fear. With the Haunter now gone, the Rattata, Oddish, and Pidgey, who had gone into hiding behind some boxes, came out of hiding and thanked Meowth and Pikachu, especially Pikachu, seeing that Meowth was basically a coward. And they were so impressed and grateful to be rescued by Pikachu that they pleaded with Pikachu to stay with them forever and become their leader to make sure that Pikachu could always protect them no matter what, in case the Haunter ever came back. Meowth explains that Pikachu couldn't stay with Pidgey, Oddish, and Rattata at the warehouse forever because it had an owner who needed it a lot. Even more so than the Rattata, Oddish, and Pidgey. Pikachu was amazed by what Meowth just said, thinking that Meowth was referring to Ash, and shocked that Meowth had seemingly turned a new leaf, being okay with Pikachu going back to Ash and not wanting to capture him, although Pikachu falls over in dismay as he realizes that Meowth was actually referring to Team Rocket, stating that Team Rocket were the ones who needed Pikachu more than the Oddish, Rattata, and Pidgey. Also claiming that Pikachu was apparently already Team Rocket's property. Pikachu was going to rebut this, but just then, Team Rocket, in their Meowth balloon, was somehow able to find Meowth and Pikachu outside of the warehouse, pleasantly surprising Meowth, who didn't expect Jesse and James to show up right now, and he was even more pleased, as Jesse and James then used the same robotic extendable hand that they used to get Pikachu earlier to lift Meowth up in the Meowth balloon to join them, and they used a metal clamp to grab Pikachu, leading Meowth to question why they didn't just drop Meowth off in the Meowth balloon and then extend the arm down again to grab Pikachu and pull him up, with James and Jessie countering that Pikachu could probably find a way to escape from the hand, but it couldn't find a way to escape the metal clamp, since they then revealed their new secret weapon that they had installed onto the basket of their Meowth balloon being an electromagnet, which James activated on Jessie's command. And since Pikachu's metal clamp was attracted to the electromagnet, Pikachu began to get sucked towards the electromagnet and was about to get attached to it, when suddenly, as Team Rocket were laughing, about to succeed and pull in Pikachu, it was revealed that the thing that Officer Jenny's Pidgeot had spotted and sped towards was Team Rocket's Meowth balloon, as the Pidgeot arrived and poked a hole in the Meowth balloon, causing it to crash down onto the ground, before the electromagnet was able to suck up Pikachu, meaning Pikachu and the metal clamp began falling to the ground as well. However, Officer Jenny and Ash were closely behind the Pidgeot, so Ash was able to catch Pikachu, who was still in the metal clamp, before he touched the ground, leading to a touching reunion between Ash and Pikachu, as Ash hugged Pikachu, still inside the metal clamp, very happy to have him back, and Pikachu was glad to have its master back as well. Officer Jenny then threatens to arrest Team Rocket for their attempt to steal Pikachu, leading Jessie to just laugh, stating that their attempt to steal Pikachu wasn't over yet, as she has James reactivate the electromagnet, making Pikachu come towards them once again, but Ash still holds on to Pikachu to prevent him from being sucked in, but unfortunately, this just results in both Ash and Pikachu being sucked up to the magnet, doing so by turning up the magnet's power. However, the magnet was powered up so much that it began to move nearby crates and other heavy objects, which hit Ash, knocking him to the ground and forcing him to drop Pikachu, so only Pikachu was sucked up to the electromagnet once again. Ash tries to get up and grab Pikachu, but he's then knocked down again by some oil barrels that went flying thanks to the magnet. It was then revealed that the Haunter had ran away and hid behind these said oil barrels, and now that the oil barrels had become displaced, being launched towards Ash, this now exposed the Haunter's hiding place, making them able to observe as Pikachu then began to have its electricity drained because of the electromagnet, as it screamed in pain. Ash called out to Pikachu, telling it to hang in there, but Pikachu was really struggling, and unfortunately, Ash, since he was knocked down, couldn't do anything, nor could Jenny or the Rattata, or Oddish, or Pidgey, as they were almost hit by several objects as well. However, one of the Rattata decides to bravely charge towards the electromagnet to save Pikachu, inspiring several other Rattata, Pidgey, and Oddish to do the same, and this first Rattata eventually makes his way to the electromagnet, and while the rest of the Pokemon, including some of the Haunter, who decided to help as well, attack the electromagnet, the Rattata uses a Hyper Fang on Pikachu's metal clamp, which breaks it, freeing Pikachu, severely angering Team Rocket as they go to send out their Arbok and Weezing to try and reclaim Pikachu, but before they can do that, Ash commands Pikachu to use Thunderbolt, only to find out that he couldn't, and this means that Team Rocket was seemingly going to capture Pikachu, but just then, one of the Haunter comes up to Team Rocket, along with the other ones, and together, all four of them use Nightshade on the electromagnet to destroy the electromagnet and send Team Rocket blasting off in the explosion. Everyone cheers, including the Pidgey, Rattata, Oddish, and Haunter, and Pikachu realizes that the groups work together and declares that they should be friends. Jenny, always being around the port, knew of the Haunter's constant attacks on the Rattata, Pidgey, and Oddish, so she suggested that they should become friends as well, so that the conflict could end. And just then, the Rattata that had helped free Pikachu, along with one of the Haunter, shook hands, indicating that they agreed that they were going to be friends from now on, since they saw that they were able to accomplish more together. Yay! Pikachu was pleased at this, but Ash saw that it looked very tired, and came to the conclusion that it must have just been tired from having his electricity drained, so Ash comforted it, cradling it in his arms, hoping that would make Pikachu feel better, as he then hopped back on Jenny's motorcycle, and Jenny drove him back to the boat. However, as Ash and Jenny were on the motorcycle, they saw that the boat was already leaving the port, as it had now reached nightfall, so the boat was leaving. On the boat, the captain looked over the port as it was leaving, sad that Ash couldn't make it in time, since he knew that that meant that Ash likely hadn't saw Pikachu. Just then, though, it was revealed that Jenny had permitted Ash to ride to the boat super fast on her speedy Pidgeot, so as the boat was leaving, Pidgeot arrived, and was spotted by the captain and his Machoke. Pidgeot then dropped Ash and Pikachu off on the boat, as Ash thanked it, and then went into one of the cabins with Pikachu to sleep, noticing that Pikachu was extremely tired and he needed a good rest. However, Pikachu fell asleep before Ash could even get into the bed and even think of tucking it in, so Ash made sure to tuck it in when it was already asleep, so that it could get the best rest possible. Ash then makes himself comfortable in his bed, although he doesn't go to sleep for a very, very long time into the night, as he wanted to make sure that Pikachu was safe from Team Rocket. As for Team Rocket, when they blasted off, they had become wedged into their electromagnet, and the electromagnet was attracted to the ship, due to the ship being made out of metal. So, basically, Team Rocket was stuck on the electromagnet, which was stuck on the ship, meaning that they were heading to Hoenn with Ash. Great, just when we thought we were getting a fresh start, Team Rocket will continue to be there. Team Rocket were currently bitching because of their current situation, but I'm sure they would feel much more grateful when they found out that they'd be going to Hoenn with Ash. The next morning, Ash had just fallen asleep when he was woken up by the sound of the ship's intercom having the captain's voice state that they were approaching Little Root Town. So, Ash quickly changed into his new clothes and rushed out onto the ship's deck, along with plenty of other passengers, as they saw Little Root Town in the distance. As the town got closer, Ash practically wanted to jump off of the boat and on and into Little Root Town, eagerly anticipating the new adventures, rivals, and challenges he would have to endure. Though, he stopped himself as he was amazed by the scenery around him, involving several Hoenn Pokemon that he had never seen before, including, unbeknownst to Ash, a Pelipper and some Wingull in the sky, and some Whalmer in the water, as well as a Sharpedo who jumped in the water. The Wingull and Pelipper continued to fly alongside the ship, and The Sharpedo and Whalmer were surprisingly friends, despite the Sharpedo being rougher and the Whalmer being calmer. Ash was so amazed by this that he thought that he should go show Pikachu some of these Pokemon, and he also thought that it'd be a good time to check on it, to make sure that it wasn't super tired still, as when he had left the room, Pikachu was still sleeping. However, when Ash returns to the cabin room and tried to wake Pikachu up, he emitted red sparks in response. Ash questions what the fuck was going on with Pikachu as he tried to touch him, only for Pikachu to spark again, and when Ash felt these sparks, he felt that they were hot, leading Ash to believe that the reason why the sparks were red was because Pikachu had a fever and was sick, making Ash extremely worried, not knowing what to do, remarking that this was a terrible way to start off their new journey in Hoenn. And with that, the original series, 276 episodes, comes to a close, and the next episode will finally be on Pokemon Season 7 Advanced, otherwise known as Pokemon Ruby and Sapphire Advanced. Holy fuck, I cannot believe we made it through the first original series. If there's actually someone who's watched all 276 parts of these, and you haven't watched the actual anime yet, wow, I love you.